Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for hopping on to learn a little bit about the Blue Earth Area School District School Facility Bond Vote that is going to be on the Tuesday, November 5th ballot. Whether you're joining in live or watching a recorded version, we thank you so much for taking some time to hear the education and facts about this very important question. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a little bit of our facility planning process and then really explain how we got to this point of where we're at today. And so our story with this really started about a year and a half ago in the spring of 2023 when we had a very unexpected issue with our water lines here at the K7. And what that project did was when we dove in to see what it was going to cost us, we found out that that project alone was going to be over $1 million just to fix the plumbing issues here at the K7 building. School districts have what we call long-term facilities maintenance dollars in planning. And we had, for that project, we had budgeted about $75,000. And so clearly that amount was not going to cover what we were planning for long-term facilities maintenance. And so it really forced us to sit down and say, well, what can we do to address the needs, not only of the plumbing lines, the water fixtures, but all of our facilities needs. And so that is exactly what we did. We sat down, we made a list of all the projects that we needed to complete that needed to be addressed in both of our buildings, and gave that list to our facilities committee of the school board, which of course assessed the condition of each of our facilities. At that point, they were in agreement that yes, we need to do something to address this growing list of needs in our facility. And so that next step to us was, well, we really need to hear some community input. We need to hear what our community members are saying about what they want in their school district for the future. And so we created a task force group that was representative of all of our stakeholder groups so we could share these findings and the identified options with them and hear their thoughts on how best to address the needs, where they also agreed that creating this community-wide survey was a really good way to hear the community's input. So that is what we did. And I'll go into that in a little more detail here in just a few moments. But we did launch that community-wide survey back in September of 2023. We had excellent results. We had excellent engagement. So thank you to everybody who took the time for that survey to complete that survey. They provided us with the necessary input that got us to where we're at today. The next step in this process, when you do some facility planning, is you need to give this proposal and the project details to MDE, and the commissioner needs to sign off on this project. We have a review and comment portion, and we got the green light. We got the thumbs up from the commissioner that said the project was looking good. We can proceed with the next steps. And so at that point, the school board voted to go ahead and place the ballot question on the November 5th ballot. And that is what I'm going to explain here a little bit more in detail tonight. And so I want to cover a little bit about what our building needs are that I was speaking to a little bit earlier here this evening. Our current preschool through 7th grade building is approaching 100 years old. And so the portion that of the building that I'm in right now is the 1928 section. And so this is the portion that is approaching 100 years old. We have additions that were added on to this current building along the way. So we have portions approaching 100 years old, portions that are approaching 75 years old, and portions that are approaching 50 years old. I touched on the water lines and the plumbing fixtures that are failing. And I touched on that earlier here tonight. And that's really, again, what catapulted us into identifying all these different list of items that we need. You can see some photos here of some of our bathrooms. They are in need of repair. You can see the damage that the water is doing to the floor and the structures and the walls of this building. Because this building is approaching 100 years old, we have currently where our cafeteria is located is in the portion that's nearly 100 years old, and it's in the basement. When you think about a building that was built nearly 100 years ago, it was built for the needs of the students and the community at that time. For today's learners, right now, that cafeteria is undersized, and we can only do what we can with the structure that we have. And what that means is we are only able, at best case scenario, to produce the most efficient lines possible with the structure that we're given. So we do what we can to have those lines having efficient flow as best as possible, but the room in and of itself has a tendency to produce long lines for students to get served their breakfast and lunch. And then just the structure itself, it's a very loud environment that can cause overstimulation for our students. There was a time where we needed to add on some temporary structures to this building in an effort to gain some additional space. Those temporary structures are still in place and are now approaching 40 years old. You can see by some of the photos again here on this slide to the right, our classrooms again, when were built nearly 100 years ago in portions, they lack the needed electrical capacity and flexibility to meet today's teaching methods. So we are a one-to-one device, one-to-one instructional device for our school students here. And the photo that you see here on the top right of the slide is what we have done to try to accommodate in our current space to hold the capacity for our one-to-one devices. And the structure of this building is such that it cannot actually accommodate the full electrical capacity that we need to charge all these devices. So our maintenance and custodial staff has built these accommodations in the classroom, not only to house these devices, but then they have built these accommodations where only half of these devices are charging at one time. Otherwise, it overloads our systems and we end up tripping breakers. This current school that I'm in has various levels. If you've been in this building, we have a basement and we utilize that again with our cafeteria. We have some preschool, kindergarten, first grade classrooms also on that lowest level. We have a main level where I'm at currently. We have second floor and third floor as well. So it has various levels and it makes it very challenging for individuals who cannot utilize stairs to access all parts of the building. And what makes it even more challenging for our students who are either wheelchair bound or perhaps has an injury where they need to use crutches and utilize elevators, or when we're holding events for our public and we have our aging population come in to our buildings. It's a very vast building with lots of stairs. And of course, the elevators are there for that purpose. We do not have the capability right now to make it from one part of the building on the lowest level to each level, so the main level, second floor, and third floor, and have access to all of those rooms and classrooms in that portion of the building. So we have students who are currently needing, whether they be wheelchair bound or on crutches, needing access to different classrooms throughout the building. And in order for them to gain access to those classrooms, they might have to take 2 or 3 different elevators down different corridors, down different hallways, just to gain access to the elevator that they need to gain them access to the correct classroom. So you can see there's a lot of lost instructional time as they try to make their way to the elevator that is necessary to get them to the location they need to be. We currently have a lack of gym space in this current K7 building. And what that means is that currently we're, as a smaller district, we are very proud of the amount and the different opportunities and activities that we're able to offer our students. And we want to keep as many options as possible for our kids so they have as much opportunity as possible to participate in anything they would like to participate in. And in the winter months, we're very proud that we're able to offer in our smaller school district a gymnastics program, and a gymnastics program that is very popular with our students. And so what happens then in our 1928 portion of this building, when the gymnastics season is upon us, is we lose that 1928 gym because the gymnastics equipment is in there. And so our physical education and recess time loses the opportunity to utilize that gym space. So as you can imagine, in Minnesota winters, if it is below 0 wind chill or if it is sleeting outside, we're not able to have our kiddos go outside for recess. Well, our other gymnasium spaces are used for physical education courses, and we might not have enough space in our gymnasiums to allow for all grade levels to have a recess for that day. And so we might have to offer alternative options such as quiet activity time in the classroom if the weather doesn't cooperate in the winter months. We know how important movement is to students today, to our kiddos, in order for them to get the wiggles out, to have that free play, to have the social and peer time with their friends. And we know how important that movement is for them to get ready for an afternoon of learning. And so it's very important to us that we have adequate gym space so we can allow for all those physical education and recess opportunities to happen throughout the year, no matter what time of the year it is. We also know that there is a current available space at our high school that can support 7th grade students, and I'll touch on that a little bit more here in a couple slides. Our current building, a preschool through 7th grade here, these building systems being 50, 75, and 100 years old, they are old and inefficient, and it costs more to operate this current system than it would a newer construction. And I'll go into more details with that as well here in just a few slides. Also, some additional facility upgrades and improvements that are needed are updates at the high school. And so our current high school, it opened to its first student body in 1994. So we are now 30 years old at the high school, that building. Those air handling units that are out at the high school are also 30 years old. They are original to that building. And they are not only approaching the end of their service life, they have approached the end of their service life and then some. They are only in the current condition and being able to be used because our maintenance and custodial staff has taken such great care of making sure that those air handling units have the highest quality equipment upgrades and products in them to extend it as far as possible. And so that's where we're at with those air handling units. We need to take a look at replacing those, and that is very, very expensive to do. We have very strict standards and codes to adhere to with our indoor air quality. The state of Minnesota has guidelines that we have to meet with that. And so it is very important that we have air handling units that are not failing, that we are not having to put Band-Aid fixes on. We know that that just catapults and kind of snowballs into if you have air handling issues with the units and you have too much moisture in the building, you know exactly what can happen from that point on. And what it, like I said, just produces a snowball effect. Also, with today's standards, what you want in a school district is the utmost secure facility. Out at the high school, the main entrance needs to be reconfigured to improve safety and better monitor visitors. In both of our facilities, both the current preschool through 7th grade building, as well as our A-12 high school, both of those buildings, we have all of our exterior doors locked throughout the school day. But what happens when we have visitors? They buzz at the front door, our office staff lets them in, but then they have free access to all remaining parts of both facilities. By today's security measures, you have all your exterior doors locked in a school facility. You will still get buzzed in from an office staff person once a visitor is identified. But then once that visitor enters the building, they typically only have access to either a front foyer or a front office space where we need some time to verify who they are, what they are there for. Do they need access to additional spaces in the building? Because we need to ensure the utmost safety and security for our students and our staff. In addition, at the high school, our high school is located right at the junction of Highway 169 and Interstate 90, which has a lot of traffic going through on any given day. We need to make sure that our buildings and all of our facilities are of the highest safety and security for the safety of all of our students and staff. I touched on earlier about repurposing some of the current space at the high school to serve the 7th grade students. And again, I will explain a little bit more about how that came to be here in just a few slides. And we can do this by repurposing some of the current media center space at the high school to better support student learning. Earlier tonight, I touched on, as part of our process to gather community input, we launched a community-wide survey about a little over a year ago in September of 2023. So we sent to every district resident a postcard that invited them to take this survey about the future of Blue Earth area schools and its facilities. So we mailed out 3,711 postcards. We also let folks know if they needed a hard copy, we'd be happy to mail that out as well. Of those 3,711 surveys that went out, we had a fantastic amount of folks who completed that survey for us. We received 1,377 responses, which equates to just over 37%. And the reason why that is just so impressive and so important for us is that in order for us to get valid data that we could use to make some informed decisions about the facilities here, we needed at minimum 20% response rate. And we got over 37% response rate, which told us we had some very valid data to give us some direction for the future of Blue Earth area school facilities. So let's talk a little bit about what this survey data had shown us as we sifted through all the results of what folks took in that survey. So we launched this survey and we began by asking, do you think it's important that we make an investment in the school district facility? And then we gave some different options and listed some different projects. Overwhelmingly, folks said, yes, we agree that now is the time to make an investment. And we gave people 3 options to choose from. So I'm going to go through those here. The first option that we gave to folks was renovating the school here, this pre-K 7 building, but maintaining the 1928 section. So the section that I'm in, which is kind of the main artery of this building, it's that center section, it's the oldest part. That was option number 1. Option number 2 was renovating the school, but demolishing and replacing this current 1928 section. So a little bit more demo and construction compared to option number 1. Option number 3 was taking a look at building a brand new preschool through 7th grade school out by the high school campus. Overwhelmingly, you can see the results here in front of you that the community chose option number 3, which was building a new preschool through 7th grade school. Here is option 1 here that again shows the results of renovating the current preschool through 7th grade building, but maintaining this 1928 section. Option 2, once again, right here, the second one was to renovate the preschool through 7th grade building, but demolish and replace the oldest part, which is that 1928 section. Option number 3 is this middle one that was building a new preschool through 7th grade school out by the high school campus. Then there was also an option there for folks to choose that said, I do not support any of these options. And then the last option to choose from was for folks to say they were undecided. They didn't necessarily know if they wanted to choose option 1, 2, or 3, and they didn't necessarily know if they didn't support it. They were just undecided at this time and maybe needed some additional information. We were also able to get some demographics from the survey because we wanted to know what different groups of stakeholders were preferring to do. So the maroon bar on this slide here with the survey results in front of me, this maroon bar represents our general citizens. The yellow bar right next to the maroon bar represent parents. So that means parents who currently have students attending Blue Earth area schools. The orange bar next to the yellow bar represents our current staff at Blue Earth area schools. And this beige tan bar here represents ag land owners. And that's going to become important here in just a few minutes as I explain the impact that it has for taxes and why we wanted to identify what ag landowners thought as well. Something else that we were able to glean from our survey results was not only getting the demographics of the stakeholder group, what option those folks preferred, which of course was building a new school. We were also able to identify what the community said they'd be willing to support with their tax tolerance. We know that in order to fund new facilities across the state of Minnesota, it requires an impact to property tax owners, commercial and industrial, and agriculture owners. And so what we found out from this survey is this table in front of you, this graph, because this is what we were able to identify based on those survey results that our community said, this is what we would be willing to support. Here's our tax tolerance. This is what we could support, an impact to our taxes for investing in Blue Earth area schools. This was very important to us as we made some changes and tweaks to the proposed project based on the survey results. Because of those survey results, we were able to get to this point here where we're at today. And so again, at the time, the survey questions looked a little different than what our current proposed plan looks like, because we made adjustments based on what you told us. And so some of those adjustments included not including some of the high school projects that were proposed on that original survey, because you told us that they were maybe low to medium priority. They weren't necessarily high priority. So we have removed those from the list of the current projects. What you also told us was that initial option 3 of building the new preschool through 7th grade building, that is what the community found that they were most supportive of, but they did not want it for that current price tag. That was incredibly important to us. So we went back to the drawing board and said, how can we reduce this cost? And the way we can reduce the cost of a new construction is to reduce the square footage. And so what we did at that time is we went to the high school and we took a look at, can we better utilize this existing space to fit the 7th grade students out here so we can reduce the proposed building by 1 grade level. And of course, we were thrilled to find that, yes, the current high school absolutely has space for the 7th grade. We can repurpose some of those areas in the media center. Some of those photos that I showed you a few slides ago were photos of the media center that when that high school was built and opened in 1994, it actually housed in the media center 2 stationary computer labs. As you know, today, in today's learning environment, we do not utilize stationary computer labs because our students and our staff have one-to-one devices. So there is no longer a purpose for stationary computer labs. We are we're able to improve the efficiency of those spaces, and there is room to fit the 7th grade out at the high school. This current proposed plan that includes a total of a $66.845 million bond. That includes about $10 million of updates and facility improvements at the high school. So those HVAC units that I spoke to a few moments ago that need replacing, this amount includes replacing those. It includes repurposing the media center and some additional spaces to better utilize it and house the additional grade level for 7th grade students. And it also includes the cost to reconfigure that front entryway so we improve our safety and better regulate visitors. It also then includes, this current project proposal includes a preschool through now 6th grade building. And so we were able to reduce some square footage from that original survey that went out by transitioning, again, the 7th grade to the high school and this new preschool through 6th grade school, which would be located currently where it sits, just on the south side of that parking lot on the south side of the high school. The school district is very fortunate to already own that land. So we are fortunate not to have to go out and seek purchasing land that of course would add on to the total project cost. So what will a new preschool through sixth grade provide? I've touched on a lot of this earlier, but you can see these are some concept image over to the side of what a potential new construction or new building could look like and could provide for some innovative learning spaces for our students to fit the way that we deliver education in 2024. And overall, we know that the current preschool through seventh grade building that I'm in right now, we have more square footage than we need, and it's not the right kind of square footage. So this current building that I'm in right now, the current preschool through seventh grade building is about 185,000 square feet. The new proposed building, the new preschool through sixth grade building would be about 67,000 less square feet than we currently have, plus it would be better square footage. And so it would be about 115-ish thousand or so square feet for a new preschool through sixth grade building, which of course translates into more efficient operating systems. And what that means in regards to annual operating costs is having 67,000 less square feet that is more operationally efficient will save the district over $130,000 annually in operating costs. In the current building for the preschool through seventh grade, I mentioned that a lot of these classrooms that were built about 100 years ago, they were built for the needs at the time. They're a lot smaller than what we currently need. A new building could provide both the size of a classroom that would allow for flexibility of instruction to provide large group instruction, as well as small group instruction. It would provide energy efficient systems and infrastructures. I mentioned the safety and security features. I mentioned the electrical capacity and what we need to support today's learners, as well as a few other features that I touched on earlier that we are currently lacking in this facility. Some renovations at the high school, I also touched on those. Here's some more concept images that you can kind of envision of what we could repurpose and look like in a today's 2024 learning environment. Again, we would reconfigure those entrances for safety and security, repurpose the media center, and updating the HVAC system throughout the school. What does that mean for us in programming terms of how we deliver education? Blue Earth Area Schools is kind of a unicorn when it comes to our high school. We currently serve our high school students in an 8-12 environment. Most schools have a 7-12 school that maybe has a 7-8 junior high model and a 9-12 high school model, or maybe a 9-12 high school model with a 6-8 middle school model. If we transition the seventh grade to the high school, we can better utilize that existing space out there. We can allow for better efficiency of some of our shared staff, where we currently share staff between buildings for music education, art education. So being located near one another in those facilities would be able to allow us to use them more efficiently, and of course create a junior senior high course model like I spoke to just a few moments ago. What will this current bond cost me? I shared earlier how important those survey results were because you told us what you would be willing to support. What we were able to do is take all of that data from the survey. We made adjustments to the project where we knew that we needed to better utilize some space at the high school because the community told us they wanted a newer building, but not for that original cost. We knew that some updates at the high school were needed, but not all of them. So we were able to tweak the project based on the survey results and still produce a facility, 2 facilities that meet the needs of today's learners. We were also able to take the input that you told us you be willing to support for tax tolerance. And this is how the current bond is structured. It is based on that input. And so this table, you'll notice, matches exactly the table that the results showed us the community would like to see in a project cost. And so this chart here shows the annual and monthly tax impact for the current $66.845 million bond that is to be financed over a 25-year period. So if you own a residential home and that home is valued at $150, for example, the estimated annual tax impact, the annual tax increase for this project would be approximately $158 per year, or about $13.17 per month. Another key component to this entire education and information evening is explaining the Egg to School tax credit. The Egg to School tax credit is fairly recent in history in that it's just something that was passed in 2016, 2017. And it was in large part passed because the legislation here in the state of Minnesota recognized that we had some incredible inequities in our facilities from metro and urban areas compared to rural and outstate Minnesota. The age of the facilities in rural Minnesota far exceeded the age of the facilities in metro and urban areas, and that's because of the way that school facilities are financed. They are financed through tax impacts. So when you have a metro and urban area that has a much larger tax base to spread that tax impact across, that means that the average individual or the average business owner feels that tax impact a lot less because there's a lot larger base to spread it across. That is not necessarily the case in rural Minnesota. So school districts in rural Minnesota had a much larger uphill battle in passing a bond to build a new facility. The state of Minnesota, the legislators recognized that back in 2016, 2017, and had passed a bipartisan supported bill for this Egg to School tax credit. At the time, this bill said that the state of Minnesota would pick up 40% of the tax impact on ag land to build school district facilities. That was back in 2017. Since then, the state of Minnesota has increased that tax credit to 60% and has increased it again to where it sits today, which is 70%. So this Egg to School tax credit, it states in statute that the state of Minnesota is going to pick up 70% of the tax impact on ag land for these school district facility bonds, meaning that our ag landowners would then be responsible for the remaining 30%. What does that mean in the overall project cost? So for the overall project cost, this Egg to School tax credit is picking up 50.4% of this bond project. That is very, very important for folks to be educated on and to understand how it works. Again, the state of Minnesota passed this in 2017 or so, started at 40%, increased it to 60, to where it's increased it again to where it sits today at 70% for ag landowners that the state of Minnesota picks up. There is nothing that ag landowners have to do to receive this credit. There's no paperwork to file, nothing additional on your part to do. It is already reflected in your tax statement. If you want to find out how this would impact you, I cannot encourage you enough to go out and use our tax calculator. It is located on our website. If you go to www.beaschools.org and you click on the link that says, click here for referendum information, we have this tax calculator located in several different spots on that website. Once you click on that tax calculator, you will get a screen that pops up and looks very similar to the one on my screen here. This yellow box is where you are going to enter your parcel ID. If you do not know your parcel identification number, it's no problem. We have these 3 blue links off to the side here that you can click on, and it will take you to the Beacon website where you can locate your parcel ID. Because our school district expands over 3 counties, the majority of it is in Faribault County, but we do have parts of our district that expand over into Martin County and a couple parcels that are up in Blue Earth County. That is why we have 3 different links here for you to click on depending on what county in which you either own land or reside in. The majority of our school district belongs within Faribault County. So if that is you and you click here for assistance and identifying parcels located in Faribault County, that will take you to the Beacon website where you can input your address and it will click out a parcel ID for you. That parcel ID is what you're going to enter in this yellow box, but it becomes really, really important that you format that number based on what that county requires. So again, since we cover 3 different counties, all 3 counties have 3 different ways of inputting the parcel ID. For most of our folks here in Blue Earth Area School District, again, it's Faribault County. So when you enter that parcel ID into this yellow box, it's important that you format it like is shown here. So you're going to enter the first 2 parcel numbers followed by a period. You're going to enter the next 3 parcel ID numbers followed by a period again. And then you're going to enter the last 4 parcel ID numbers and you're going to click Get Info. Once you click Get Info, you are going to see beneath that black box exactly the tax impact that it's going to have on either your residential home, your commercial industrial business, or your ag land based on the parcel ID that you put in. If you have any troubles with this tax calculator whatsoever, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Give us a call here at any of our offices at the school. Come in here and I'd be happy to meet with you in person and walk you through how to get this tax calculator to work for you. Because we've had some meetings and some time that we've been pushing out some information and education about this project, there's a couple FAQs that I've received to date that I'm just going to quickly cover here. This is not all of them. I encourage you to go to our website. We update those frequently. But some 3 common questions that I'm getting quite a bit is what happens to the current K7 building if this bond passes? Well, again, that number, that $66.845 million number that includes updates to the high school and a new construction for preschool through 6th grade building, also includes the amount it would take to demolish the current K7 building. And we do that for a couple different reasons. So that $66.8 million amount includes about $1.5 to $2 million budgeted to demolish the current K7 building. The reason for that is because we know the history of building newer facilities across the state of Minnesota, across the nation. A lot of times those schools are unable to find a buyer to purchase those older and aging facilities, and it ends up being a tax burden to that city. That is not what we want. We wanted to budget for if needed to demo this building. Well, what happens if the bond passes, there's a new building built, and along comes a buyer for the current preschool through 7th grade? What happens then? That is just fine. If that happens, we can certainly sell this building to a buyer. And so what happens to that $1.5 to $2 million that was budgeted for the demolition is it simply gets reallocated to different facility projects. There is nothing else that we can use that money for other than facility improvements and upgrades. It cannot be used for any operational costs. It cannot be used to help pay for wages and salaries of staff. It can only be used for facilities purposes. So we have that amount budgeted in if we need to demo it. And if there is a buyer and plans change, that's fine. We can reallocate it to a different facility portion of either the high school or a potential new building. It's also important to note that where the current building sits is the only portion that would be demolished. The park, the school playground and park that is currently to the west of our building, the newer basketball courts to the west of the building, and the tennis courts to the west of this building would remain untouched. What were to happen if we were to demolish the building? What happens to this land? There are several options that could happen, and that would be decisions down the road. But hypothetically, there could be somebody who comes along who wants to purchase the land for building lots. We could certainly, if the city was interested in purchasing the land for, let's just say, $1 or $2, we could do that and give it to the city so they could have some buildable lots. So of course, the intent is to always make sure that it is in the best interest of community use as well. Another question that's come up is why not build a proposed new building onto the current high school? And at this point in the project, it certainly isn't off the table, but of course our architects and engineers have already looked at this, and there's several reasons why this is not the best option and why building a brand new structure on that south part of the lawn would be a much better option. Currently at the high school, the only realistic place to do an expansion would be on the south side, which of course is on the south side of where the gym is located. So if we expanded there, it's not the best place to add on additional academic wings to that portion. And then also you would have the additional costs of expanding a newer parking lot. You would also have additional codes that you would be adhered to if you try to add on to a current structure. So having a brand new standalone building or structure oftentimes has a lot more freedom in how the new building is laid out. It typically costs less and you have less code restrictions. And then another frequently asked question that I get, what are the operational costs on a new building compared to the current building? I touched on that earlier, but again, a newer building is about 67,000 less square feet. And of course is much more operationally efficient. So it would produce an annual savings of roughly $130,000 in operational costs to the school district. I want to thank everybody who came out last week, whether it was at the High School Performing Arts Center or the preschool through 7th grade school the next day, and we did some tours here. Thank you to everybody for joining us as we try to make sure that we get all of our community members informed and educated prior to November 5th. Thank you to everybody who's either hopped on live here tonight for our virtual meeting or who is watching the recording of it. We have added an additional date for tours of the preschool through 7 building. So I want to encourage anybody who has not been in this building in several years or perhaps never. We have from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, October 12th. We have some community activities taking place in Pemberton. It is open and free to the public. Bring your kids, let them play some activities in Pemberton, and we would be happy to take you on some tours of the preschool through 7th grade building at that time. And please remember to go ahead and vote on election day, Tuesday, November 5th, or vote absentee, vote early by contacting the courthouse. Once again, if you feel like you still have questions, please make sure you reach out to me, call us at any office, or visit our website at www.beaschools.org. And thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this very important update.